Yes, this is Tri-Cities Sports Now. Yes, this is Scotland the Brave. I mean, we play the Star-Spangled Banner, before, the noon and the midnight hour. Why not Scotland the Brave? Maybe because we're not in Scotland? See, there's two reasons. One thing is that this area, the Tri-Cities, Northeast Tennessee, does have a lot of people of Scottish heritage. Think what the Cloudland Highlanders logo is. It's a Scottish piper, a bagpiper. But the other reason why is, there's so many great theme songs, walk-up theme songs. Baseball players have them, that sort of thing. And, the walk-up that a boxer or a pro wrestler would have when he would walk into the ring. And think about that. MMA. All right, now who was it that came out to Scotland the Brave? Who's from Saskatoon, if you want to know. Yes, my idol. Broderick George Toombs, otherwise known as Roddy Piper. And I regret to tell you that on this day, 4 years ago, Roddy left us. He would have been, I guess he would have been 65 years old. He didn't die on his birthday, but far too young. And just, for my money, look, I mean, it's sports entertainment. I mean, in pro wrestling, it's predetermined who's going to win, etc., etc. Like a lot of people, child of the 80s, when I was, a teenager and all that, that's what the WWF was, targeting us for. I mean, highest rating, it may still be the case, but the highest rating that MTV ever got, certainly in their initial years, was Vince McMahon decided that he would have the Rock and Wrestling Connection. There was no hip-hop back then. Well, there was Rapper's Delight and all that, but it was just in its infancy. But anyway, you had that, and they put this has never been done before, okay? I mean, they put on MTV a pro wrestling match. It was Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, and Roddy Piper was talking about how, rock and roll was going to be the devil of us all and all that. He would play bagpipes coming in. He really played it up. Roddy Piper was, in fact, a piper. He could play the bagpipes. He could play them very well. That was how that all thing, he was from Canada, actually, but that whole Scottish thing, that's where that all came about. That was part of his character. And anyway, it got the biggest rating. And I mean, I'm, 13 years old when that is, this is what is targeted to me. Junior high school, I went to a junior high, not a middle school. Actually, I went 6th grade to a middle school, then I went to a junior high. Okay, so moved at the time. And you would be talking about, everybody talked about pro wrestling. Maybe not everyone was a football fan, maybe not everybody was a baseball fan. Every boy was, chicks, even the grandmothers, they got into pro wrestling at the time. And, yeah, come on. Who do you think I rooted for? Hogan is pure cheese. Piper, that's where it's at. That's the character, right? Most gifted entertainer ever in pro wrestling. That was what Ric Flair called him when he was inducted in the WWF, or WWE, see, we're WWE Hall of Fame. I remember I went to school, one guy who would wear to school a baseball cap that would have the WWF logo on it. You wear a Braves cap you wear a cap of, the Tennessee Titans, the Vols or something. So this guy, World Wrestling Federation, that's how huge it was. Now, I mentioned this actually in a previous show. By the way, I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fan. Nominated not for one, not for two, but 3 categories in the Johnson City Best of the Best poll So please go check that out. And best radio personality, best sports personality, and best sports program. We've got them all up there. So, very, very, very proud of all of that. Thank you, Tri-Cities, for that. And it goes to say that maybe they pay to see the CAD, as Montgomery Burns would say. And, Simpsons, how does that stay on so long? Anyway, we got that. Now, today I was telling you about Tom Shanahan, who was supposed to be on the show today, talking about his book, Ray of Light, which details basically how college football, by and large, integrated. Now, I mean, there's, I could tell you stories of, black players starring in the 1922 Rose Bowl, don't get me wrong. One of the interesting things I've always felt that, yes, here I'm going to play the Roddy Piper heel, but it's heartfelt, it's honest. You want to know? I think the 1939 Tennessee Volunteers are overrated. You heard me. Yes, and I'm going to say it this way. Oh, but they were undefeated and unscored upon. Well, then how'd they lose 14-0 in the Rose Bowl to Southern California? Well, that was the Rose Bowl. That wasn't a regular season. Take a look at the regular season that year. I think it was Texas A&M was the national champion that year. I want to say Tulane won the SEC because, Tennessee was beaten up on doormats. They didn't play anybody in the second half, and in the first half, the SEC that year, back in 39. There's a reason why nobody scored on them. They weren't that good. And so you had, and now, you go undefeated and scored upon even against a weak schedule. I can see where that time, best team in the East, best team in the West, for the Rose Bowl, you would get the Rose Bowl invite. Don't you? I do understand that. But I believe Tulane was the SEC champ in 39. Double check that, but I believe that's the case. A&M was the national champion. And they go to the Rose Bowl, lose to the Trojans, 14-0. UCLA, the week before, UCLA that year was undefeated. They were an impressive 6-0-4. Yes, 4 ties, including a 0-0 tie against Southern California. And the star kick returner for the UCLA Bruins that year, Jackie Robinson. So, we had integrated teams out west, and the SEC was still segregated. So you cannot tell me that UCLA, which performed better against a common opponent that year, for instance, was not, and they did keep their undefeated record, better than the supposedly undefeated and unscored upon Tennessee Volunteers of 39. All right, so there's your history lesson for the day, and that is something that only I, in this market, could tell you. And the lifelong Tennesseans, they'll go out and they'll, and all this. No, they won't. Folks, I know this stuff, okay? We will not be talking about Bobby Dodd's 3-year career with the Vols and his 6-year career. He played 6 years at Dobbins-Bennett. We will not be talking about that in the next segment. Forgive me. I may get into, however, my old favorite argument, Josh Dobbs versus Nathan Peterman, because Peterman's getting in the news again. But I do want to begin this talking about football. Of course, we will talk about all the baseball trades, and I will give you even some local basketball notes, I suppose. But I want to start off talking about ETSU football. Our practices, football practice is starting up for everybody. And even if the Buccaneers don't win 8 games this season, because that was the 3rd highest single-season victory total in the history of the program, I think the Bucs have, some reasons to stick their chests out right now. And I'll give you 3 examples here. 1, best defense in the SoCon. I'm saying it. Defensive Player of the Year preseason in the conference. That would be Nigel Player. Then you got best running back in a conference in Quay Holmes. Now, I know Holmes fumbled the goal line against Jacksonville State. A lot of people are saying Jacksonville State might be a dark horse to win the national title in the FCS this year. Because, you see, North Dakota State's their coach that's gone to Kansas State. They promoted the defensive coordinator. They only returned 7 starters. So there's a lot of feeling that this could be the year in which, North Dakota State gets knocked off. So I'll let you think about that. Anyway. So that's number 2. Number 3. Home field advantage. Now, I know I don't really put a lot of stock in that. Oh, they'll be yelling at the Buccaneers' opponent. Boy, whatever will they do? But I will say this. Chattanooga Times Free Press's Gene Henley, he's on this show a lot. And he has said the environment at the stadium that should be named after John Robert Bell is the best in the SoCon. Better than the military performances that are seen at VMI and the Citadel. Now, it's a subjective opinion. I mean, we'll give you that. Better than the tradition that you might see at, say, I don't know, Furman. They've been around forever in the SoCon, right? Better than Mercer. Better than Samford. Nobody goes to Samford games, so I can see that. But best in the SoCon. Better than Chattanooga with their modern stadium. And he covered a Mox. Now, that doesn't mean that, ETSU is a slam dunk for great things, because I think it could actually have a better team this year and not meet their 8-3, ultimately 8-4 record of last season. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Don't know who he's going to throw to. Don't know who's going to kick field goals. There are question marks here. ETSU legitimately won 7 games last year that could have gone the other way. Now, you can say, well, now, wait a minute, what would you really want to say Mars Hill could have been, okay, but still, Mars Hill, with a minute left in the third quarter, it's 7-7. The Bucs didn't take the lead in that game until there was 1:01 left. VMI, if they can convert a third or a fourth down in their final series of the game, they may go on and beat the Buccaneers. Western Carolina lost their last 8 games, including a loss to ETSU. Why? Kicker missed a 28-yarder in overtime that would have won the game against the Buccaneers. Mercer, they barely lost. They started a 4th-string quarterback. Took Tyree Robinson's heroics to beat the Citadel. I mean, you go down and you say, boy, was this team touched by a name? Well, Austin Herink led the Bucs back against Furman. Yeah. But the way they won that one, remember, was when, the guy, Blair, I believe his name was, calls for not a fair catch, but he kneels the kickoff at the 3. Bucs get great field position. Dylan Weigel records a safety. I mean, if he calls fair catch, if he knows the rules, that game probably goes into either overtime or Furman responds with a game-winning scoring drive, and the Buccaneers lose it, and the Buccaneers don't make the play. I mean, there's so many scenarios of last season where, scraping by the skin of their teeth to win 7 games in an 8-victory season. So, and this year also, in addition to new quarterback, schedule gets tougher. You got 2 FCS teams, Vandy and Appalachian State. And also, this year in the SoCon looks like it could be like the NFL, in that on any given Saturday, or whenever the game that is played on, but, there really is a feeling of even VMI can rise up and win a shootout if the other team has some turnovers. And it's that NFL type of any given Sunday type of thing. I'm going to talk more about this in ETSU football when we return. It's Tri-City Sports Now.
It's time for the television.